Hey everybody, Robert Phoenix here. How's it going? It's whoa, hey, a little out of control there. Sorry about that. All right, let's take it. Take two. Yeah, I decided to wear a hat today. Today's wear a hat day. Hey, what's going on, Zero Dragon? Fup. Yes, it's the hat day today. Elan. What's going on, man? Hi, Judy. How are you? Yeah, I decided to put on the hat today. You know, seems like people who are successful on the internet wear hats. They're known for their hats. Roger Stone's got a bunch of hats. Lionel's got a bunch of hats. So I just thought, you know, the hat is where it's at least for today. Sunday night, probably no hat. Anyway, how's it going out there? Very interesting day. If you're paying attention to the news, we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about that today to a large extent, and get into some astrology around this wall thing. Supposedly Trump signed it at 10 o'clock a.m. But then again, nobody's really sure if he signed it or not, which is kind of a another puzzle piece for the Trump administration. Something that comes about, like what's really going on sometimes. It surfaces. I know what's going on here in Fredericksburg. We're still working on our anti-fluoridation action, and that's going pretty well. We had a little meeting last night with the Tea Party. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting experience from the local perspective. I had never been to a Tea Party meeting before, and it was at one of the local barbecue joints here in town. And the food was good. The people were very nice. You know, they offered up their space, and they gave us, they gave us about you know, maybe 10 minutes to talk. You know, we kind of went through our thing pretty quickly. And it was, to me, it was a pretty eye-opening experience because obviously these are people who are very, very dedicated, and they're very involved in some of the things that we talk about here. Maybe we talk about them in more cosmic terms or more celestial terms. These people are kind of boots on the ground with what they believe in around personal rights, personal freedom, less governments. You know the drill. So it was interesting to see them kind of, you know, gather together in a room. And most of them were older, I'd have to say. There were a couple of people under, you know, there are a few folks under the age of 40, but I would say it was, you know, more of an older contingency. And one of the things that happened is they punched in Chip Roy, who's a representative from this area, and he actually talked about the bill, and he said to the group there that was assembled that Trump was going to sign it. There wasn't going to be any veto, and he didn't think that there would be a national state of emergency. Well, we got both, and we're going to see how that plays out. So it was really interesting to have this guy who is, you know, representative of this area, you know, take 5-6 minutes out of his day on his way to go talk to Tucker Carlson about his, you know, what was going on in Washington with the bill. He asked questions and was like, wow, this is kind of cool. This guy's actually like interacting with his constituents. And it was actually, you know, interesting that the constituents had a connection to Chip Roy, and, you know, so it was a fascinating kind of look into local politics, which I, you know, have avoided at all costs. But since I'm in this fight to get the fluoride out, you know, I'm trying to meet people and make some allies, and, you know, switch some people on, especially if they have the same kinds of ideas that we have, which are, it's all about consent. You know, why should we consent to having what is essentially medicine added to our water? Because that's what it is. You're using fluoride as a preventative medicine for tooth decay. And we're not agreeing to that. This is not what we signed up for. You know, there's plenty of other sources to go out and get fluoride. You can go down to the, you know, go down to Walgreens and get yourself a nice big fat tube of fluoride-filled toothpaste. And by the way, there's a little disclaimer on there that'll say, it says that if you swallow that tube of toothpaste, you should probably call emergency. You know, the reason why is because it's filled with fluoride. And that's sodium fluoride. That's not the fluoride that's put in the water at a municipal level. That's hydrofluorosilicic acid. And it's a different version of fluoride, and it is corrosive as all hell. They have to replace these fluoride pumps, every 3 years or so, because they get so corroded by the addition of fluoride. It's absolutely ridiculous. And not only that, but the fluoride that they pump in, aka hydrofluorosilicic acid, has elements of arsenic and lead in it, and at no level is any arsenic or lead safe for consumption. So we shared some of that with the folks last night, and I tried to wrap their heads around the fact that this is something that's added to our water, right, as a preventative medicine, but we don't have to take it. We don't, and we have a right and an ability to vote of that and exercise our right and get it out of our water supply. So that's what I did last night, and we got, so I knew ahead of time that Trump was going to sign this thing, and going to talk a little bit about that today and see if we can break that down. We've got some screen share set up. Let me just check in with you guys in the chat room, see what your thoughts are on this bill. Yes, I am looking dapper. Thanks, Raven. This is a strange day. I feel the owl's looking right into my soul. Oh, that's good. That owl has a very penetrating effect. Sorry, late YouTube instant notification. So gross. Is that a giant amethyst next to the owl? Yes, it is. It is a giant amethyst next to the owl. I don't know why YouTube is frozen up now. The live stream is frozen up just a little bit. What else we got going on here? Vitamin arsenic. You find the need other than vermin control. Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to get your opinion or feeling. I just feel like there's so much drama on this whole wall deal, and I think a lot of us are kind of over it. To be quite honest with you, is it a problem? Well, according to the guy that called in last night, Chip Roy, who's a representative, he went down to the border last week, and clearly he saw a lot of crazy stuff. He saw over 150 people scrambling across the border. That's just in, one part of Texas. He saw a room full of, very small room full of 50 people that would just cross the border. A lot of very young people. Some of them were sleeping in parks. They asked where they were going. They already had destinations set up. Well, we're going to Virginia. I'm going to Ohio. So is there a crisis? Is there an emergency? I guess it depends on what you define as a crisis and an emergency. This country, if you believe in countries, is essentially being invaded. I mean, it really is. And I'm not sitting here trying to bust out some right-wing vitriol, but facts are facts. We have literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming into this country on a daily basis without any kind of quality control whatsoever, And the ironic part is, if you do it on the flip side and go to Mexico to do it, you're not gonna last very long. You'll wind up in a Mexican prison, which is very ironic. So, it's not great. It's not great. And the bill he signed, I'm going to break some of that down. And the people on the right are livid with Trump. They're absolutely livid with him. And one of the things that they're livid about is the fact that there were these, if you watch the press conference, you'll see the angel moms come out. And these are mothers who lost their children at the hands of somebody who was here illegally. And losing a child is horrific. It's terrible. It's probably one of the worst things you can go through as a parent, as a human. You never really recover from it. It's not happened to me, but I know people that it has happened to. And, it's just there's no new normal after that. Spiritual edification can be, very helpful. Sometimes people turn to God after they lose kids. It's not that uncommon, and they, can find some solace and peace and some kind of, personal spiritual transformation. And it doesn't negate the fact that it could happen to other people moving forward. Does the hand of God or the hand of fate touch our lives from time to time? The answer is yes. Do we want to lessen some of those chances? Yeah, I'd say the answer is yes as well. We want to be able to control some of the chaos and the outside influence that, can actually, harm somebody. I mean, if you lost somebody due to something that was a variable that could have been controlled in some ways, you probably have a pretty strong opinion about that. That's my 2 cents. So what happened is that Trump would not meet with the angel moms. Apparently, his chief of staff, this guy Malavi, would not allow them to meet with him. But why is that? Is it because perhaps at the 11th hour they might sway him and they might sway his decision to sign that bill? I'm gonna get into the nuts and bolts of this bill, and you may be shocked when you see what I'm about to read to you. But the fact that they would not allow him to see these women speaks volumes to the amount of control that's being exerted around this guy who's in the White House. And he could be having a religious conversion. The two are not mutually exclusive. They're not. And he's still dealing with Jared Kushner, who I really believe is the president. I believe Kushner is kind of the de facto president, to be quite honest with you. And it's Jared and Ivanka and their ideology. And in Kushner's case, obviously, his religious and tribal and even I wouldn't even want to say crime connections. I can if I want to. I think Kushner's bad news. And every time they have gone in to take away security clearance, it always either kind of falls off the map or it gets reinstated. He's untouchable. Jared Kushner is untouchable. And there's a reason why he's untouchable, because he's very connected and he has a lot of power through his connections. And this is a guy that's influencing Donald Trump. And I've already shared this before. From an astrological perspective, Donald Trump has Pluto in the 12th house. I've talked about Pluto. I talked about it last week on my Astro live stream. In Jared Kushner's true node, which is kind of, where he's supposed to be headed in this lifetime, is in the sign of Leo, which is, of course, connected to kings and royalty and everything that's associated with the sign of Leo. And it's right on Trump's Pluto in his 12th house. So Jared Kushner is deep into Trump, and he's tapping into Trump's Pluto almost as if it's a power source. That's my best take on this. And I believe Kushner is really in a deep state of influence with Trump. And I think that's actually been played out on a number of occasions. The first thing he did, obviously, was to get rid of some of the generals, right? So anyway, what I want to do is I want to get into this piece here that I found, and it's on Fellowship of the Minds. Let me pop it up, and we're going to jump right into what this actually means in terms of the language. Let's do this. Here we go. Okay. So this is Fellowship of the Minds. This site was actually taken off of the internet for a while, and it's back on. There were a number of site purges. Anarfan was one. Fellowship of the Minds was another. This one came back. So I'm going to read this here. So this is Ann Coulter by signing the budget. This is what Ann Coulter has just been on Trump's DICK really for the last 3 or 4 months. She's been relentless on Trump. So I'm going to read this. Ann Coulter, by signing the budget deal, Trump signs away his right as commander-in-chief to build the wall. So you may think that that's hyperbole. I'm going to go a little bit deeper here and show you some actual language for the bill. You're going to see just exactly what's taking place here and what the impact is. Yesterday afternoon, AP reported the White House confirms that President Donald Trump will sign a bill averting a potential partial government shutdown at the end of the week. At the same time, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says Trump will also take other executive action, including a national emergency. This is total schizophrenic Gemini. I think this is like bad Gemini, right? There's good Gemini and bad Gemini. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to sign the bill and I'm going to declare a national emergency. The problem with a national emergency is that it sets Trump up to have everything reviewed by a judge. And if a judge thinks that there is no national emergency or Trump is abusing his powers, then that national emergency or state of national emergency will be shut down. There'll be a court ruling that there is no state of national emergency, or he cannot use his executive powers to unilaterally state that there is one, or claim that there is one. So it's not just a rubber stamp. And by the way, you know, Bill Clinton had like 15 states of national emergency. I think Obama had something like 7 or 8. You know, this is the one time Trump was pulling the state of national emergency card, and he's a villain. Of course, he's going to be a villain whatever he does. Doesn't really matter. But this is tricky now because he's acquiesced. He signed this bill. You know, this is where, you know, this is where this big holdout was, and the government shut down, and it put people. I mean, were some jobs flushed? Maybe that were kind of extraneous. Maybe was there some kind of deeper QAnon thing going on that, you know, I'm not privy to or know about? I don't know. You know, I don't have the keys to the QAnon code. And there are times when I see some Q stuff that's interesting. There are other times I was like, you know, clock's still ticking. We're still waiting to see some things here. Okay. Anyway, on the surface, it seems like that protracted government shutdown was a waste of time, a waste of people's energy, and maybe even a waste of people's resources. If you're going to go the distance with something, go all the way. I'm sure he got talked off of that by Jared Kushner, JK, not JC, hanging out in the 12th house. Okay, let me read this. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican, confirmed that Trump would quickly declare a national emergency so as to divert money from other projects, budget projects, into building the southern border. According to Ann Coulter, however, by signing the budget deal, Trump has signed away his right as commander-in-chief to build the wall. So she was on this guy Lars Larson's radio show. It's over. I've been one saying since November 8th, which, by the way, is a day before the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. That's November 9th, 11/9. Hey, you're commander-in-chief. You've always had authority to build the wall. That is part of your job description. They've talked about national emergency and his special emergency powers. Whether he uses that or not, he's the commander-in-chief, and his job is to keep America safe. But now he signed a bill which has signed those powers away. The bill that he signed prohibits any part of the wall going any place on our border. It allows not the prototypes, not a wall, but some gentle pedestrian bollard fencing in one small section, the Santa Fe section, but only if local authorities agree. We've already seen what happened with Santa Fe, New Mexico. The governor removed the troops from the border. So get out of here. It's our state. Leave. We don't need you here. It's worse than amnesty. It's a pre-approved amnesty. You may not be deported if an unaccompanied child is a member of your household. This will put human smuggling into overdrive. You could be an MS-13 member. Anyone, any illegal in this country. Just get a kid in the household. Just traffic that child across the border. You got amnesty. That's the bill he signed. I'll try to go to the Supreme Court and say, they'll try to go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, I'm commander-in-chief. It's my job to defend America. The Supreme Court will say, that's funny, because whose signature is this on a bill that says the commander-in-chief isn't allowed to build the wall? Whose John Hancock is this? He's just signed away his inherent powers under the Constitution. It is over. There will not be a fence. There will not be a wall. There will not be a garden trellis. And there will be mass amnesty and open borders like you've never seen before. The country's over. There's no point to do what you do. There's no point to do what I do. There's no point to listening to this radio show, because the whole country goes the way of California. America was nice while it lasted, but they outmaneuvered us, the people who wanted to destroy this country. This bill passed the United States Senate 83-16. I understand some of the Democrats voted against it, so it won't be held against them. They can't be blamed for open borders. You know who can be? The guy who put his John Hancock on the bill, Donald Trump. Full open borders, like something Hillary Clinton couldn't have gotten through. And that's a really interesting statement. So the author of this piece asked the question, so is Ann Coulter correct in her assertions? In seeking to confirm/disconfirm what Coulter said, I tried to find the primary source, the budget deal itself. Here we go. Infuriatingly, I couldn't find a link to or even the name of the budget deal in any of the news reports on the agreement. So I went to congress.gov and found the budget agreement amongst the 31 bill texts that congress.gov received yesterday. This is what HJ Resolution 31, the Consolidation Appropriations Act of 2019, which was passed by both the House and the Senate, and presented to the President Trump today, says, which confirms what Ann Coulter said. Number one, effective amnesty, i.e. no deportation for illegals with an unaccompanied child. Title II, Section 224, none of the funds provided by this act or any other act provided from any accounts in the Treasury of the United States derived by the collection of fees available to the components funded by this act may be used by the Secretary of Homeland Security to place detention, remove, refer for a decision, whether to initiate removal proceedings or initiate removal proceedings against a sponsor, potential sponsor, or member of a household of a sponsor, or potential sponsor of an unaccompanied alien child, as defined in Section 462G of the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Thank you, 9/11. 6 U.S.C. 279G, based on information shared by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. All right, says it right there. You cannot use any of the funds to do any of the following. You cannot initiate removal proceedings against any of these people, okay? So essentially it's gloves, it's hands off, gloves off, right? Number two, no wall but only pedestrian fencing may be built on the border. Title II, Section 230 of the total amount made available under U.S. Customs and Border Protection procurement, construction and improvements is at $2,370,220,000 should be available only as follows. $1,375,000 is for the construction of primary pedestrian fencing, including levee pedestrian fencing in the Rio Grande Valley sector. Section 230, the amounts designated in subsection A1 shall only be available for operationally effective designs deployed as of the date of the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2017, such as currently deployed steel bollard designs that prioritize agent safety. Not even pedestrian fences in these areas. Section 231, none of the funds made available by this act or prior acts are available for the construction of pedestrian fencing. You can't have pedestrian fencing in the Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge, within the Benson Rio Grande Valley Park, State Park area, within La Alameda Historical Park, within the National Butterfly Center, or within or east of Vista Del Mar Ranch, tract of the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge. Okay, so no fencing there, no walls there. Number four, construction of pedestrian border fencing is subject to local authorities' approval, which means there won't even be pedestrian fencing in places like California. So here we go. Section 232A, prior to use of any funds made available by this act for the construction of physical barriers within the city limits of any city or census designated place described in subsection C, the Department of Homeland Security and the local elected officials of such a city or census designated place shall confer and seek to reach a mutual agreement regarding the design and alignment of physical barriers within that city or the census designated place as the case may be. Such consultations shall continue until September 30th, 2019, or until agreement is reached, if earlier, and may be extended beyond that date by agreement of the parties. No funds made available in this act shall be used for such construction or consultations are continuing. So they've got to have approval. It's exactly what Coulter said. Section 232, the cities and census designated place described in this subsection are as follows: Roma, Texas; Rio Grande City, Texas; Escobares, Texas; La Grula, Texas; the census designated place of Salinio, Texas. So there we go. That basically confirms everything that Ann Coulter is talking about. Now, I'm not a huge Ann Coulter follower or fan, but I do like the fact that she sounds off, and she clearly is not afraid to take heat or flack for what she says. So it'll be interesting to see what she actually does say moving forward, because she's basically saying it's over, forget about it. Because what's going to happen now is all somebody has to do is bring a child across the border, and that's it. They're in. They're in. Based on what this bill has in it, they're in. They cannot be removed. People cannot be removed. And everybody that's already here has amnesty. They're in. There's no sending them back. Okay, so clearly this is a huge win for the Democrats and the left. And now Trump is declaring a very kind of weak national emergency. Who knows? Maybe there's some kind of, secret Q effect going on that I'm not privy to. But this is law. This is now law in this country. And we'll have to see what happens next. We're going to have to see what happens. But I think that ultimately, if you're looking for somebody who actually is standing up for certain principles, i.e. Donald Trump, they're being completely compromised by the people around him. And I think that's been going on for a while, to be quite honest with you. And of course, I think Jared Kushner is right at the heart and center of that. Bill Barr has been elected he's been nominated and approved as the new Attorney General. He comes right out of the Bush era political machine, was behind the siege up in Ruby Ridge with Randy Weaver. I mean, this is not a great guy. So essentially, as I've said before, the Bush administration has basically taken over the Trump administration. Trump is looking something like a cross between a watered down version of Reagan with some Bush and maybe even a little bit of Clinton thrown into him, with a lot of really good sort of homilies for the people that are his base, and sort of feeds them. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the base reacts to this. I think people who are really pro-Trump and pro-MAGA, I think they're going to have a hard time with this. I think they're going to have a very hard time with this, and he might have lost his base. And who knows, maybe one of these clowns that are running for president in 2020 might actually emerge from the pack and be able to take Trump on. It's, at this point, anything goes, right? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at the chart for the signing, which was, I think, pretty interesting. And that's if it's actually been signed. That's if it's been signed. So let me pull this thing off my computer, and we'll have a look at this. All right. Let's get into it. So here's the. Let's go to this. Let me go to a bigger image. That way you guys can really have a much better look at it. Let's do that. All right. So this is and I use the 10 o'clock time. Washington, February 15th. That's today, 2019. Yeah, I'm in February finally. Yes, Jasper. It's true. So if we look at the chart, everything's pretty top heavy. It's kind of it's a bit of a funnel, slight funnel with the moon right there, 0 degrees Cancer. It's an interesting Sabian symbol for 0 degrees Cancer. I know that. That's the degree of my Mars. And it's about one flag that is lowered and another flag is being raised. Why don't I go ahead and just pull that up and read that Sabian symbol to you, because it's really interesting. And it is essentially a declaration of a new state. Okay. And by signing this bill, it is essentially mirroring this declaration of a new state. What state it is, we're going to find out, I suppose. Here we go. This is Cancer 1. We go to the next symbol, or the next degree. On a ship, the sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. A radical change of allegiance is exteriorized in a symbolical act, a point of no return. That's where the moon is. And the moon represents home. It represents, the things that, that we hold dearly, or at least we think that we hold dearly. I'm not so sure we hold it as dearly as we once did. I think the home has been atomized and fractured in a lot of our consciousness, psyches. So here we go. We have now reached a square, and that's, I think it's a 90-degree moment, which is what he's referring to here. This is the summer solstice, the degree of the summer solstice. Okay. To the beginning of the cyclic process, this is a moment of crisis, a sharp turning point. 0 degrees right there on the moon. In the zodiacal cycle at the summer solstice, the northward motion of the sun in decimation stops. The sun rises and sets as far north of exact east and west as it can during the year cycle. Its motion is now reversed. Slowly, the sunset points move southward on the western horizon, and the length of the day decreases. In the lunation cycle from new moon to new moon, this is the first quarter phase. On the ship, which symbolizes the ego consciousness floating, as it were, on the sea of the vast unconscious, the individualized will makes a basic decision. The dominant yang force allows the yin force to begin its 6-month-long rise to power. So what does that mean? Can we see that the right is the yang force, and that the yin is the Apollonian and the feminine force, perhaps? The collective will gradually overcomes the individual. Let me read that for you. The collective will gradually overcomes the individual. And at the end, the state will overpower the person. The state will overpower the person. This is the bill. This is the degree of the moon under which this bill was signed. Let me read this to you again. Okay. The dominant yang force allows the yin force to begin a 6-month-long rise to power. The collective will gradually overcomes the individual. And at the end, the state will overpower the person. Now, however, the individual person enjoys his most glorious hour. He exults in his ability to make a free decision, to act as an individual who selects his life goal and his allegiance. But this is a fleeting time. This is the first stage of the 19th fivefold series of degree symbols, a decisive act with heavy consequences. The symbolic college youth might realize that he should bring to an end his quest for the ideal companion and enter into matrimony. He assents to the possibility of progeny, of home responsibility. His consciousness accepts a process of fundamental reorientation, implying the stabilization of his energies. So what we're seeing here with this degree is essentially one flag, which represented a certain model of how this country would define itself vis-a-vis its borders, especially its southern border. It's changed. It's changed, and a new flag is rising. This is also, symbolic of false flags, which I've talked about before, and how the whole idea of a false flag, it all started during the reign of pirates throughout the Caribbean and much of the Atlantic, where ships would be flying one flag, and there would actually be a pirate ship flying the flag of a country who might be an ally of a certain country. And then that ship would sort of sail closer to it. And when that ship got within cannon range, all of a sudden they'd fly a different flag. It'd be the skull and crossbones. And the next thing you know, there'd be rape, pillage, and plunder on the high seas. So this is the degree. Let me get back into the, let's do this. Let me get back into the share here so I can, so there we go. Right here. There's the moon. Now, the moon is actually in the third house. So we're talking duality. We're talking duality, which means that there could be multiple meanings around what's taking place, quite possibly. Clearly, it does reflect this duality with the flag or the state of the flag, okay? Now, everything is really up at the top of the chart. We got Pluto, we have Saturn dominating the midheaven. And this really is the, this is the corporatocracy right up here, making it clear and definitive, stamp. This is not about the people at all. It's not. The South Node is up here too. It's right around there, right around 26, conjunct Pluto. Okay, so this is a power move. It's a total power move. The will of the people is down here, theoretically, with the true node in the fourth house, which is the home. Okay, so what's happened, in my estimation, is that this piece, this one part, this one focal point of consciousness has been superseded by this stellium, Venus, Saturn, Pluto, all in the sign of Capricorn, very, very formal, extremely formal. And with the Achilles heel being right here at 26 degrees in the sign of Capricorn as well. So this is an executive decision that will have ramifications, deep ramifications. And we get into things like the square with Mars and Uranus, which is taking place. So this is the radical pivot. We're dealing with some interesting energies here. Like this is Aries and this is Taurus. So it's a blending together, I think it's a strange kind of blending, to be honest with you, because Taurus is a sign that is generally conservative and doesn't make any rash decisions as a sign. Mars and Taurus can be very slow in a lot of ways to act, unless, of course, it's got that Uranian turbocharger at Aries connected right up against it. Something going on here behind the scenes with Chiron in the 12th house. That's very interesting. When I see that there, feels like there's some level of compromise. Some level of compromise. What is Chiron doing? Well, it's at 29 Pisces, getting ready to head back into Aries pretty quickly here. So let's see, we're talking mutable. It's pretty, I think it's pretty inert actually. But there's some level of compromise here. There's some weakness, right? Behind the scenes, somebody was compromised. I'd have to find out who has some planets around. Oh, who's got her son, Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi, I believe, is like a 5 or 6 degree Aries. So her sun is conjunct this Chiron in the 12th house. So I would imagine Pelosi had some major pull behind the scenes here. Not sure what that would be, but that would be one person I would attribute to that. Also, the 29th degree of Pisces is the degree of Baron Trump's sun sign, which is interesting too. He was born on 29 Pisces. So I wonder if something's going on with Baron Trump, and maybe even some level of compromise with him. It's a very unusual degree. It's anaretic, and it's really where the entire Western zodiac kickstarts and restarts itself at zero. So there's this dispersing of everything with Chiron at that degree. That's interesting. And it's just it's hanging out there, right? The one thing that I really focused in on is the sun in the 11th house, which is the collective. It has a collective energy to it, a collective feel to it. That's the sun in the 11th house. And it's very Aquarian and it's communitarian. So we are setting, this signing of the bill sets up a new template, which is more Aquarian in some ways, right? More kind of group oriented, group consciousness. If you're looking for a world without borders, you know, the sun in the 11th house, it's right up your alley. Because really that's what it suggests. And Mercury, Neptune are over in the 11th house as well. And that's communicating sort of this message of universality and, you know, redemption. I mean, look, that's, is there something inherently spiritual in everything that's going on? Of course there is. You know, the idea would be to kind of dig it out and find out what it is. You know, is it about some high degree of suffering that we're all involved in? You know, I mean, yeah, I'm sure if we open our hearts and we open our minds, we can find something where there's a universal value that would connect all of us, right? But this is the message, right? This is the message that's taking place. I wanted to read you another Sabian symbol. This one is really interesting. And it's 27. And I don't think it, to me, it has some fairly catastrophic language associated with it. So let me read that one to you. It's a very interesting symbol. So we're going to go to a Cancer 27. So when I work with the Sabian symbols, I would definitely read 26, and I'd read up to the next one, which is 27. So 26 is this symbol of luxury, security, safety, and intellectual indulgence to some degree. Okay, so this is phase 116, Cancer 26. Guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home. Oh, you're a guest, you're in a luxurious home, nice library, let's check it out. The transference of social privilege to the level of intellectual enjoyment. Okay, I'm going to skip a lot of this, right, because I really want to get to the next symbol. But basically, it's setting up that there's this peak, right? There's this peak of luxury, safety, security, and the ability to hang out in a space where you can take in other ideas. And that in and of itself is a function of a higher class, because generally speaking, those are the people that have the time and the space to do that, while the rest of us are out kind of busting our humps, right? Okay, so Cancer 27, which is where we would go, is a violent storm in a canyon filled with expensive homes. I'm going to read this. A confrontation with a social upheaval demanding the reconsideration of social values. Remember, this is the true node, and it's in the 4th house, Cancer's house, in that chart. The deeper implications of the scene depicted in the symbol are that the sociocultural elite can always see its position and security challenged by forces beyond its control, even if it may be successful in protecting itself from destruction. The individual may not be able to depend on the standards and values he has acquired through education and through a relatively sheltered and rich life. You see, this is in contrast to the preceding symbol. He has to rise to the occasion and perhaps undergo an inner metamorphosis as a result of the crisis that he has been able to accept as a personal challenge. The contrast between the two first phases of this 24th sequence is evident. Peace and luxury and intellectual development in terms of collective cultural values, reading books, and the challenge to meet a crisis situation produced by uncontrollable karmic forces that could lead to a successful catharsis. That's interesting. So what's just taken place in the signing of the bill, and according to people like Ann Coulter, who have studied the bill The pundits on the right are basically predicting that that President Trump, Donald Trump, signed an order that has opened the gates of hell. This is basically what they're saying. Now, is there any truth to that? Are we going to see a kind of an all-out siege based on what just took place? Well, if history is any kind of a barometer or gauge for that, I said the answer is probably yes. All you have to do is go back and look at Cloward-Piven, the Cloward-Piven strategy, and using the system to break itself. This is what they did. This is where they basically bankrupted the state of New York, and were very successful at doing it. What you do is you use the system and you overrun the system. It goes into overdrive and it collapses. So a Cloward-Piven strategy could easily be employed here. And there are a lot of people who are deeply invested and paid, by the way, and paid fairly well in order to bring people up to the border, have them cross. It's it's an industry. So is this basically what Coulter and the left are saying, or sorry, the right are saying, is that this is the green light for that to happen? That now everything is going to accelerate into kind of a maximal process or maximal density. And as a result of that, everything changes. And it's kind of an interesting symbol because this does reflect that. A violent storm in a canyon filled with expensive homes. Well, this is not, a meteorological event, but it's a population event. It's a population storm, storming the gates of this country. Now, what it also implies here is that this is karmic. That this is a karmic act. Maybe that's true. Maybe at some point we have to deal with what happened with the native culture that was originally on this continent. Maybe we have to deal karmically with the fact that there was slavery in this country. But I'm going to bring it forward a little bit. I'm going to bring it forward with the karma that we sow on a daily basis by bombing places like Yemen and the Sudan and Somalia, and arming governments like the Saudis, Saudi Arabia, and other groups, not just governments, but groups who carry out these sorties, some of which are state-sponsored, some of which look like they're people that we should be fighting against, i.e. ISIS. That's the karma that I think we have to deal with. And that's the karma that people, again, who are on the right, they don't understand. They don't understand. They don't understand what this government is doing and how we're waging a daily war. And most of these wars are being fought for corporations. And I know I'm veering off the right platform, but I'm into truth. There are things on the right that I like, and there are some things on the left, theoretically, that might have some interest for me, like being able to speak out against other governments and not be accused or slandered of, or being accused of some kind of slander towards a particular group, right? But we're engaged in bombing the shit out of places like, we see these pictures of babies bombed out in Yemen. It's just terrible, and it's been going on for a long time. We did it in Libya. We've been doing it for years in Somalia. We've been doing it for years in the Sudan. And of course, these people are displaced. Now they're refugees and they got to go live somewhere else. We're doing that. To me, that's the karmic impact. That's the karmic effect. And the reason why I say that is that if you look back through history, history is filled with groups or armies or kingdoms or countries taking over land. History is one long kind of onslaught of territorial conquest. It happens. It happens. You can look at any country, modern, you can countries have lost themselves. Look what happened to Armenia. They're gone. Now they're living, Armenia's been relocated to Los Angeles. This happens. I'm not advocating it, but this is part of the human experience. We do this to each other. And it's all about power and money and resources. Have people been subjugated throughout history as a result of that? Absolutely. Serfdom and slavery has been rampant on this planet, and to some extent still is, if you want to get into the existential kind of, definition of what that is. So is there really some kind of karmic effect in the past? I don't think so, because that's part of our story as humans, for better or worse. And a lot of times we show up worse for it, but that's what happens on this planet. If you study history and you know history, it goes on all the time. It's happening right now in Venezuela. There's a coup going on right there. And it's, they're trying to get this guy Maduro out. It's an old story that's just been repurposed, and it's all about resources and power. Always has been, always will be. But the karma that I think this symbol refers to is what we're doing now, because we cannot have a holier than thou attitude about how we're evolving and what we're doing, where we are and have been for a very long time. But let's be clear, since 9/11/2001, spilling blood on a daily basis and having people come back from those wars damaged, either psychologically, physically, or both. So I think there is going to be some kind of reckoning unless we can begin to rebalance our assaults on other people's countries and other people's cultures. It's just, and stop fighting wars for other countries that want us to fight their wars. The latest thing now is Iran has come out and said, oh, we're going to level Israel. We're going to blow them back to smithereens. That's bullshit. The Iranians are in bed with the Israelis. They get to provide a threat. They get to provide an existential threat in the Middle East. That's what they're there to do. Those mullahs, they're connected. They're totally connected to the Israelis, right? And I don't care if YouTube bans this video, but that's what they're doing. And so now everybody gets in a huff, right? Oh, look what Iran's doing. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. It's just another big bad wolf. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. So that, of course, they can drum up supports and arms and all the stuff that goes on and on and on and on. The karma for what's happening in this country is real time, and we can begin to eradicate that by stopping our involvement in these foreign wars that aren't even our own, and stop the slaughter of innocents that hardly anybody ever understands or recognizes or sees. Stop it right there. Now, it may be too late. We may have to deal with a real crisis. We may have to deal with a catharsis. Might be coming. We can't just do these things and expect them to be inert and just go out there. And it's like, oh well, like the Southern Methodists and the Southern Baptists would say, oh well, it's God's will. It's God's will if these people die. They're heathens, right? No, I don't think so. So I think we're probably going to have to deal with it, but we're going to have to probably deal with it here at some point in time, and maybe sooner than later. So to me, this is the catharsis. And something's got to come to a head, and we have to balance this thing out. And it could get very heavy. It could get pretty intense, right? So let me see what you guys have to say after I've gone through my little soapbox moment there. Let me see what you got going on. Tulsi Gabbard is the only real anti-war Democrat. She's being smeared by her own party. I like Tulsi. I like Tulsi a lot. But I don't think you can trust any of these people. She's got a strong connection with the Council on Foreign Relations. Anybody that gets into a position where they're being promoted, you have to be very, very circumspect. But I do like her. Let's see what else we have here. I've noticed the most intelligent conservative voices are now anti-war. Apparently, they've learned from the Bush years. Yeah, Bush years were terrible, absolutely awful. What else do we have? Missouri has enough to go around. What else? Send prayers, good vibes, whatever you want to call it. Sounds like Malibu Fires. I wonder if that's why he's just not around, because the circus is so hostile. I never remember Obama with his girls being yelled at. Well, they weren't his girls, that's why. What else do we have here? I noticed at the State of the Union, Barron was not there with Melania. Yeah, Barron, I think Barron has Asperger's. That's what I think. Either that or he's like, suffered some sort of like some damage from time travel, some neurological damage with time travel. That's what I think. Let's see. Etruscan problem is the very same group that sent us to war is now orchestrating this weaponized migration. Yes, that's true. It is, and it is a weaponized migration. Let's be clear about it. It is. It totally is. I mean, to not see it for what it is you're blind. You're absolutely blind. And if you're really involved in some level of truth and dissemination of that, you have to see it for what it is. It is being weaponized. And the groups that are coming in are being used to basically change the demographics. Like they really want to flip Texas and make it blue. They totally want to make it blue. And they're getting very close. I mean, that bonehead Beto nearly got elected. And I'm not banging a drum for Ted Cruz, but that gives what does Beto stand for? He's just he's an indie rocker fanboy who's married into billions of dollars. That guy's a phony. All right, what else do we have? Time traveler syndrome. Yeah, maybe Barron does have time traveler syndrome. I don't really trust any politicians, but when they actually say something right. Tulsi was the only person that went to Syria and actually looked at what was going on. And I think she actually met with Assad. When was the last time Trump met with Assad? I mean, come on, there's really no high level, really no high level diplomacy or really high level kind of interchange that's going on. It's because Trump's getting his marching orders from his son-in-law. That's why. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. Brother Zygus have become more conservative in a sense. They do not want to relinquish any more control of this crooked government. Absolutely, which is why I went out last night to that Tea Party meeting so that I could talk to these people about the water. I really feel like we have an incumbent responsibility to take care of our local environment to the best of our ability. That's where I think we have the most power and pull. But it was very interesting too, because I saw this real-time pipeline to the representative in Washington into this little small, maybe about 40 person meeting in the back of this restaurant. So there's also a connection from the local to the national. Not that I'm really, that enamored with the national scene, but it was interesting to watch that. Is it good or bad that Amazon will not be building in Queens, New York because AOC fought Bezos and won? Well, it depends on who you ask about that. What's really interesting now is that Amazon is now going to be relocating to Northern Virginia. Well, so who's in Northern Virginia? I mean, that's Langley, that's CIA country. So is it good that Amazon is relocating closer to CIA country? Maybe. I don't know. If you're Jeff Bezos, you're just getting closer to the people who pay your bills, right? A bit of info I came across this week. Huge law firms, New York City, DC, and Chicago are moving to Dallas. What do they know? Well, probably riots. That's what I think. Part of the partisan programming made conservatives anti-environmental. Yep. Let's see. The 11th house, the first city to fluoridate its water was Grand Rapids, Michigan, the home domain of Calvinist nuts Betsy DeVos and Eric Prince. Thanks for the insight into that. Yeah, that goes back a ways, doesn't it? That was right after Bernays worked his dark magic. Oh, Judy says tax laws. Oh, Zio's right, says tax laws. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Texas, we don't pay state income tax here. So, we pay it when we buy something, which I think is the way it should be. I think that's how taxes should just go in general. If you buy something expensive, you pay for it. And that would go also into corporate tax accounts because they buy a lot of expensive stuff. The corporations run the matrix. Yeah, the corporations are a big part of it for sure, Kate. They're a huge part of it. The government is a corporation. The government is a corporation. And ever since Pluto went into Capricorn, that's become more and more evident because we've seen this interstitial bonding between governments and corporations. So, yes, absolutely. Linda says, I've noticed every time Trump appears to be painted in the corner, he pulls off a win. You know, there's something to be said for that. Linda, I've seen some of that too. I've seen where also people that have opposed him, vehemently opposed him, something weird happens to them. So, you know, we'll see. But again, I'm looking at the action. I mean, who knows what he's going to be doing with this whole executive action thing, or executive order thing, state of emergency. It's going to be challenged in court. It's going to be held up. Government is a corporation and Congress are the board of directors. You're absolutely right. And we are property and chattel of that corporation. You haven't figured that out yet. Facebook is starting its own towns, laugh out loud. Look, I think that I'm not a huge fan of Amazon. I mean, their warehouse scenes are, you know, they're pretty hard to watch. It also has a really aggressive corporate culture, but again, you consent to be there and work for it, so it's your choice. But Amazon was set to bring jobs to Queens. And of course, they're going to get tax breaks. And that's the way these things go. People don't understand this. You know, people don't understand that there's going to be a trade-off with tax breaks, and you're going to get a company that actually has a plant or distribution center, right? That's what happens. It's the state of business. If you don't get tax breaks, how are you going to get it done? Well, you can use your own money, or you could go someplace else, which is going to be much more advantageous for you not using your own money, i.e. China. This is what happened with globalism. So I think it probably would have been good for the state of New York. At the very least, there could have been people that might have been able to use the work. Now those jobs are going to be redistributed throughout the United States, but the main headquarters now is going to be in Northern Virginia, very close to the home of the CIA. So there you go. Every politician has a corporate handler. Yeah, you see, this is what I find really interesting too about this whole Ilhan Omar situation. Like, you don't become a congressperson unless you're vetted, really, really vetted. And I don't care if she's in, you know, Minneapolis or Taleb's from Wayne County or whatever. You know, you've got to be vetted. You're vetted to get into that position to begin with. And then there's another level of vetting from the various lobbies, including AIPAC. They vet you. So AIPAC actually approved of Ilhan Omar. Yeah, it's true. That's what happened. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, you've been watching Homestead Rescue? I love it. I love Homestead Rescue. Marty's a trip, man. I love Marty. Just look at it, Martin Mars. You know, he's Mars in action. Marty Rainey is Mars in action. It's like, that guy does not take no for an answer. I'd love to know what his sign is. He's 63 years old. Absolutely 63 years old. Yeah. So sorry, I was a little buzzard the other night. Oh, it's Berkey Naburu. That's okay, Berkey Naburu. You can be a buzzard. I just want to give you guys some updates here. The new platform is coming along just nice, beautifully. I'm going to be launching the new platform on Sunday night, this Sunday night. That's going to be my platform launch. We could talk about Jussie Smollett too. We'll get into that in a second. Let's do that. I just want to give you an update on the platform. So everything's lining up, and I'm working with Paulette, who's putting together this very nice landing page. So when you donate to the GoFundMe, which I've already got it all together. I just need to post. I'm just waiting for Paulette. You'll be taken to a very cool page where you'll be able to get this voice personality print, this voice print personality profile. It's very cool. What's going on, Aloha Light? Nice to see you. So that's coming along great. I should have that together tonight. Go over to my website later today. You can check in. You can do the GoFundMe thing, and you can sign up for that and get that voice print recording. And then on Sunday night, fingers crossed, we're doing the live stream, and we're going to be embedding the experience from my website. Now, it will probably go to some other places at the same time. And I'll probably save it and upload it to YouTube later. Or maybe the first night, what I'll do is I'll embed from the live stream, and I'll also have it on YouTube as well, because I can do both. I can stream simultaneously to YouTube and from my own website. So I think I'll do that so that people will understand that there's something happening. Eventually, this migration can take place. Starting on Monday, 15 Minutes of Flame will be on my website, robertphoenix.com. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. What else do we have here? Oh, the Jussie Smollett thing. Brother Zygo says, just Jussie Small, just a distraction. Yeah, it is a distraction. And if he had pulled it off, it would have been, another, sort of, kind of broad brush smear against, this kind of, cultural affront that's taking place now. But he didn't pull it off. And it's really interesting is that, there's kind of a whole like world of black Twitter and black YouTube, which is really interesting. It's like it's evolving its own culture. And when some of these people talk about Jussie Smollett, they are just, motherfucker lied. I mean, they're just like coming out and saying that he's an out and out liar and mincing no words. And it's really funny is you'll hear like on talk radio. I was listening to this guy on talk radio yesterday, and he was presenting the case. He says, well, I don't know. There could be this possibility, and we really have to take that into consideration. But, and then he lays out, all these other pieces because he doesn't want to get branded as being fill in the blank, right? And meanwhile, in another part of the universe, on black Twitter or on black YouTube, they're just calling this guy outright left without any apology. It's very interesting to watch how we, number one, take the information in, number two, filter it, number three, disseminate it. It's a very interesting commentary in our world. Very interesting. Do I think Trump believes in astrology? Yes, I do. I do think he believes in astrology. Absolutely. I think everybody in the White House has the option of having an astrologer work with them. I know for a fact that Obama was using an astrologer, and God, that was a long time ago. That was when there was this website, Elsa, and she would post a lot of other astrological stuff, and she was posting a lot of stuff from me on her website. So I actually had a bit of an interesting relationship with her, connection with her. And she told her followers that she knew the astrologer that was working inside the Obama White House. I think it's probably kind of a de facto position in there. Whether they use them or not all the time, that's a whole other story. But Trump's got a Sun-Uranus conjunction, and Uranus rules astrology. So I would say the answer to that would be yes. The small family are all SJWs, and they are not in the in crowd. It was not cool the way you were trying to troll these fine people. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna practice a little forgiveness with Burka Nibiru. We're gonna give, and we'll keep it at that. Oswald said, millionaires don't believe in astrology, billionaires definitely. Yeah, that's the famous line, isn't it? Well, I love astrology. I love working with people astrologically. By the way, I could use more clients. Just let you know. No, it's okay. I'm in a place now where I'm actually in a building phase. So I'm cool with having sort of a nice little baseline of clients, but I got to tell you, the window is open. The window is open. Whose site do you lurk on? Elsa? You know Elsa? Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of a star on Elsa's site back in like 2009, 2010. She used to post a lot of my stuff. I think that got a little too controversial for her. Brother Zygos, they all use it, especially the major release. Yes. They know they are the gods and use them for their own spells and devices. Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry, going to get on the wagon. Okay. All right, listen, I'm out of here. That's everything I need to share with you today. That's the update on the wall. We had a little bit of a peek into it astrologically. I'll be back on Sunday night, and it's going to be the first night we're going to be doing a live stream from my website. It'll happen simultaneously on YouTube. It'll be good. It'll be good. And then there's going to be 15 minutes of flame happening directly from the website. I've got a Mars webinar coming up. That's on the 2nd of March. And you may want to check that out. It's going to be very cool. The whole idea with the Mars webinar is to understand Mars in your chart. Don't fight against it. Work with it. You know, if you have Mars and Pisces, you know, don't try and do a Mars and Sagittarius trip, right? And there's more to it than that. We're going to get into mythological Mars and planetary Mars. It's going to be a wonderful day to share some Mars. Okay? All right. Hey, thank you, everybody, for showing up and being a part of this. And I really appreciate it. And if you're interested in the GoFundMe experience, it'll be up on my website probably tonight. And there'll be kind of another call to action on Sunday night. And basically what we're looking at is taking care of streaming for a year and being able to create the content and the community over on my website and, you know, have a much cleaner, unified, and intact experience. Okay? God bless you all. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to shape what's possible. Enjoy your Friday, and I'll see you guys on Monday night. Take care. Or Sunday night. Take care.